My sister's family made shameful comments about my daughter, so we're avoiding gatherings now.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Shame. Hey guys, just really quick before we get into the story, there's a trigger warning. There's like some phobia, like phobic comments, just contexts in the story. So if you don't want to hear anything about that, go ahead and skip this one.
I, 34 female, have a preteen daughter, 11 female, who is a girl. She hasn't started puberty blockers yet, but she's already made a lot of changes. Wearing dresses, growing out her hair, and speaking in a more feminine voice. She's thriving, and I'm so proud of her for being herself. By the way, this comes from user AccurateOkra4783, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/OKStorytime subreddit. However, things got pretty complicated with my sister. Her name's Sarah, and her family. I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong for how I've been handling things. Sarah has always been more than just a sister to me. Growing up, we didn't have a dad, and our mom struggled with substance use disorder. Sarah basically raised me, and when I had my daughter, she was always there for us. After our mom got sober, she's been clean for 10 years now, she rejoined the family, but Sarah's been like a second mom to me and my daughter. That's why this situation is so hard for me, and I really don't want to cause any rifts. Sarah's husband, Tim, is very conservative, and while I've never heard him directly say anything hateful about my daughter or people, I overheard him once, thinking was in another room, saying that people don't exist, and that my daughter should dress like a boy until she's 18. That moment really stuck with me, but I didn't confront him about it because I was so shocked. A while back, my daughter and I went to a family dinner at Sarah's. Everything was fine until my nephew, Sarah's son, 12 years old, said something that really hurt my daughter. He told her that she wasn't a girl and that she had male genitalia because God gave it to her. This was devastating for my daughter, and we had to leave early because she was crying. I didn't want to make a scene, but I can tell my daughter was crushed. The next day, I met with Sarah for coffee and told her what happened. She was incredibly apologetic and promised that it would never happen again. She assured me that Tim didn't share those views and that she was unaware he was transphobic until my daughter's transition started. I appreciated her trying to be supportive, but when we went back for the next family dinner, things took a turn. During dinner, we all held hands to pray, and when it came time for my daughter to join in, my nephew refused to hold her hand. He called her a gross tranny. I didn't hear this directly, but my daughter came to me afterwards, upset and crying. My nephew seemed confused and didn't say anything when I asked him about it, but I trust my daughter. She's not the type to lie about something like that. She just wants to be accepted. Sarah claims my nephew didn't say anything, but I'm not sure what to think. I know she doesn't share Tim's views, but at the same time, I can't ignore the possibility that Tim's influence is seeping into the kids, even if it's not being said outright. Since then, I've been avoiding family gatherings because I just don't feel it's a safe environment for my daughter. I don't want her to go through more hurtful moments like this. I don't want to cause a rift with Sarah. She's been such a huge part of my life and my daughter's life, and the thought of breaking up our family over this is very devastating. But at the same time, I have to protect my daughter and make sure she feels accepted and loved. So, am I the a-hole for not spending time with Sarah's family? I feel like I'm doing what's best for my daughter, but I don't want to damage the relationship with my sister either. And we have some comments, but Dakota, what do you think?
You're not the a-hole. I think you just, and if that's how you feel, like you really communicate that with your sister, where it's like, hey, seems like we're 0 for 2 right now. My daughter comes over and spends time with your family, and she gets very upset because of what people are saying.
And there's mean comments, and is your son, and I just want to, set that boundary. But also I would talk to your daughter and see how, if there is a way to move past this, or what we can do, communicate it with the son, like with the cousin in this case, what you can do. But you're doing the right thing, you're mama bearing everything, and you want to do right for your daughter, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And this right now, you are not the a-hole, you're doing the right thing, but you do need to talk to everyone in this picture before it gets worse and worse.
Yeah, you do, to try to reconcile, but I really do think that you need to.
No, you're doing the right thing.
It's the hard. You're not being the a-hole, but it's like you probably need to have the hard talk that like not everybody is going to accept you for who you are, because we don't live in a perfect world.
No. So we're going to comments here. We have a couple. Comment 1. I think you're commendable for looking out for your child. It's the right thing to do. What I'm stuck on is your nephew looking confused when you asked him about it. Not sheepish, guilty, scared, or any other way that would indicate he actually said it, but confused. Confused to me seems like he has no idea what you are talking about. No one heard it at the dinner table, with multiple people but your daughter. You might need to consider that he did not actually say that. Maybe ask your sister to come out with you and your daughter. She should bring your nephew along, go on a nice outing together, and then sit down and talk about this incident. Then speak about how we needed to respect people and be kind. Make a discussion out of it with the two kids. We do have a reply. He might have been confused because he didn't think there was anything wrong with what he said, and another reply, or because he's just repeating what he heard. Comment number 2. You can only support one, and only one is the person you brought into the world for the sole purpose of supporting. We have an update, and we're gonna go straight into it. Apologies for not responding sooner to comments. The attention this post received was overwhelming, and I needed some time to process it all. First, I want to address the trolls. I get the urge to respond to them, but let's be real. These people are just attention-seeking bullies. Our responses only fuel their negativity and give them the platform they crave. Please do not waste your energy on them. To those who message me individually asking questions about people and their experiences, while I can tell some of you are genuinely curious, I can't help but suspect that for others, it's a way to project more phobia under the guise of understanding. If you're genuinely interested in learning, there are countless resources available online that can give you a far deeper and more articulate understanding of the experience than I can. I know this firsthand from helping my own daughter, and I encourage you to explore those resources. Now, onto the update. I knew I'd have to talk to my sister eventually, but I really appreciate all the advice and support that came through the comments. It was invaluable. I had a one-on-one conversation with my sister where I explained that her family was not providing a safe space for my daughter. I told her that I loved her and wanted to maintain our relationship, but that I couldn't continue to be in contact unless there were significant changes. She was understandably upset and defensive, particularly of her son. She fixated on the dinner incident. While I tried to explain that it wasn't just about that one event, there were other instances like my nephew asking my daughter why she didn't want to go to heaven or asking me if she was mentally ill. Sarah, my sister, was there for both of those moments, so I was shocked she hadn't seen the pattern herself. Yesterday, my sister reached out and asked if we could meet with her and Tim. She apologized for not listening earlier and said she wanted to find a solution. I agreed and they came over after work. I sent my daughter to the neighbors. She didn't need to be part of that conversation. When they arrived, they were surprised that our daughter wasn't there. I told them that the conversation could be harmful to her, even if they didn't understand why. Tim was visibly upset, but I asked them if they were really ready for this conversation, and they both said they were.
Really quick, I want to point out that I think that was a great move to take the daughter out of that situation, because then you don't want her to feel like she's being attacked or like she's overwhelmed, where it's like she's being ganged up on by literally her own family.
Two like adults, yeah.
Like maybe, yeah, probably for the best to keep her away from that.
The conversation itself was difficult, to say the least. Tim did most of the talking. I brought up a comment that I had overheard him say, that my daughter should just be a boy until she's 18. He asked me why my daughter couldn't just be normal until she was old enough to make her own decisions. I asked if he had ever done any research about youth to genuinely understand what my daughter is going through. He had said he had all the information he needed and started going off on a diatribe about puberty blockers, which, by the way, my daughter isn't even on. I told him that we were taking her seriously, that she goes to therapy every other week and is involved in local queer/support groups where she could talk to other girls and women about their experiences. Tim's response was that they were the blind leading the blind. At that point, my husband is usually calm and collected, was so upset that he yelled at them to leave. We'd never seen him like that before, and I think that made them realize how serious the situation was. They scurried out pretty quickly after that. This morning, my sister called crying and apologizing profusely. She was disgusted by Tim's behavior and asked me what she should do. I told her that I didn't know, but I was certain that our families couldn't spend time together until something changed. I'm especially let down because for a moment, the meeting gave me hope, but Tim completely shattered that hope. He didn't even try. He went off on so many horrible things, not just transphobic, but also sexist and homophobic. It was hard to follow because he just veered from one hateful rant to the other. It's difficult to imagine that someone with that mindset has the capacity to grow or change. Well, with that being said, this is not the best way to segue into this, but you can listen to full episodes with stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from, and search OK Storytime, and we'll be there. There's a little bit more left to this story, Dakota. I'm very hopeful because it looks like OP and her husband are the parents that should be that figure. Parents all around.
Yes, no, this is what supporting your child looks like to like the fullest extent. I do think, and I'm not even necessarily assuming they haven't, I'm just saying it's like, this is a great context. It's because it's hard and it's It's like you got family members who are not accepting you. So it's like you do need to have the conversation of like, here's how to move through this experience, right? Or try to help your daughter move through this experience instead of just shutting it out and trying to put it in like a box or something. You know what I mean?
Just the fact. Well, I'm upset at Sarah in the situation. So OP's sister, that she didn't say anything when Tim was talking most of the time. The fact that she just sat there and just didn't say anything until the next day. Oh, she's calling and crying. Like, where were you in that moment?
Well, they probably don't have the best dynamic. You know, like Tim's probably not a very good guy. I bet you Tim doesn't like it when his wife stands up to him.
But let's go ahead and finish this story. While that conversation was deeply painful, I'm also grateful it was so clear. It's never been so obvious what needs to happen, and I don't feel any guilt about it anymore. Thank you to everyone who gave advice, support, and validation. Your words helped me clear up the fog of what ifs that was clouding my judgment and gave me the confidence to move forward. I appreciate every single one of you who supported my family. Thank you. And that is the end of that story.
And thank you for your story.
Thank you. At this point, you want what's best for your child. You got to do that. If you need to cut off the ties, especially Tim, seems like Sarah again is in a hard place to figure it out, but wants to be there for you and your daughter and your family.
But that is the end of that story.